we can still answer anything. Dr. Morgan will be able to answer anything for you. But it's a fabulous episode. So if you missed it, I would encourage you to really listen to it, because you'll get to know a little bit more about Dr. Morgan, which is what I love to do. I know a lot of times we have our veterinarians come on and we just start bombarding you guys with everything, a rapid fire, right? But I really like to know people. So a lot of times when I do interviews, I want to know a little bit more. So it was really fun to listen and learn all of that. So for our listeners who didn't get a chance, I encourage you to, but for most of our listeners, you probably already know who Dr. Morgan is. So, but we also brought on, so I want to introduce you. You may not know, maybe not as much, is Gwen Campbell, which you may not know this, but is Dr. Judy Morgan's daughter. So she is also the COO of the company that they run together. And in her own right, I just got done telling her, you are a wealth of knowledge in your own right, Gwen. So welcome and thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you. My first Q&A. It's very intimidating to be Dr. G's daughter, because I don't know if you've ever watched her ask me anything, but it's like rapid fire. She's so good at them.
Well, it's good because I'm sure we'll have an enormous amount of questions coming through. And so it'll be awesome to be able to help people have a better understanding of what you guys do. And but one of the things that I find really interesting, just from being in the industry for so long, is the lack of good, holistic, integrative veterinarians. And has that been your experience as well?
Yes. I did a group meeting last night with the Veterinary Botanical Medical Association, and it was, frankly, it was a group of elders, and it's mind-boggling that I'm now one of the elders. But we were talking about how our knowledge is going to be lost, because most of us did not, well, I got lucky, but most of them have not found someone to take over their practices, someone to continue doing what they do. And these people have so much knowledge in their brains. And so now Gwen and I actually spent quite a bit of time back and forth brainstorming today. We are going to come up with ways to get this knowledge out of people's brains and into a format where it can be usable for other veterinarians and for pet owners, because we don't want to lose this treasure trove of information. Holistic veterinarians and integrated veterinarians are hard to find, ones who talk the talk and really walk the walk. Some will advertise that they do acupuncture or that they're holistic, and they're saying that over here, and then over here they're handing you your flea and tick chemicals and your prescription diets, and that is not what we want to. That's not the knowledge that we want to send forward. We want to send the knowledge forward of how to keep your pets more naturally healthy, how to avoid the pitfalls of disaster medicine. And one of the things that Gwen texted me first thing this morning, she said, I'm just so fed up with not being able to find a good holistic veterinarian. I think I should just bite the bullet and go to vet school.
You shouldn't have said that online. Now I'm going to get bombarded with emails of people being like, you must do it.
Yeah, no, I think well, I'm going to be the first one. You must do it. People say to me a lot, why don't you just go to vet school? And for me, it's kind of interesting, because I feel like if I had gone to veterinarian school back when I was in college and going to school, I wouldn't be where I am now. I feel like I would have been taught the wrong way and probably be on that path. So I'm actually very grateful that I didn't go to veterinary school, because I didn't have the access to maybe what Dr. Morgan had, or anything that would have taught me to go holistic. It kind of happened naturally on my own, but I feel like I had gone to vet school. Now I feel like if I went to vet school, I'd get kicked out. So
I was just going to say, I think Gwen would get kicked out because she would be bucking the system in every class.
I would get kicked out. They would kick me out too. Gwen, we could go together, kicked out, get on the dean's list together, because
I know. I want to be like, can I have like a teacher's note for the nutrition portion of that school? Like, I got that covered. Okay. I don't need whatever this is.
I'm sick on the day that I have to go to nutrition class or vaccine day. Like
Yeah.
I'm sick on vaccine day. I can't. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I would get kicked out. I don't think I could keep my mouth shut. So it'd be a hard thing to do. So in a weird way, I'm grateful that I didn't go to veterinary school, because I feel like now I'm in a position where I can really reach out to, the fabulous Dr. Morgans of the world, which there aren't enough of you. And so we are so grateful that you are willing to teach this to your daughter and probably your family and your friends, so that it becomes something that we can all talk about. And in those ways, it's good that Facebook exists, right? Because we can kind of spread that way. But
Social media has some benefits.
no, well, we talked about that in the interview. Is there is a problem with it, and we have to be really careful. And so before we get into the questions for today, let's be cautious. And I will say, as a veterinarian, Dr. Morgan cannot diagnose your dogs right now, today, here on this show. It's not she can do. Giving advice and kind of maybe experience and life stories and all those things help us, but diagnosing over Facebook is a bad idea. It's a bad idea.
We see it a lot too. It's pretty scary. And I some of my supporters and followers who are really highly knowledgeable in some of the questions that are asked, I have to caution them. Like, you don't want to be accused of practicing veterinary medicine without a license. You don't want to be accused of diagnosing. Like, I love it. People will put a picture of, goo from an ear, and instantly you get 20 responses. Oh, that's yeast. You have to treat it with this. Oh, that's a bacterial infection. You need antibiotics. Oh, you need steroids. Oh, I saw somebody tagged me. It was one of Gwen's friends from college, one of her riding team friends, tagged me about a case, a friend of hers whose dog was sick, and another one of their friends said, "Oh, just give it a cc of penicillin and a cc of dexamethasone." I'm like, you don't even know what's wrong with the dog, and you don't even know the size of the dog, and you're telling somebody to give 2 injections that are totally opposite treatments. Like, what are you doing? And he didn't like that I gave him pushback on that. He was like, "We're horse people. We have all the drugs. We do whatever we want. We treat our own animals." I'm like, wow, you don't want to say that too loud, because I don't know what state you're in, but some veterinary board might come down on you.
Yeah. It's scary. Well, a lot of times we hear, I just did a little consultation with a nutrition consult with somebody, and she called me and said that her dog had yeast. And I said, "Did you take it to the vet and get it diagnosed?" "Well, no, but it smells like yeast." And I said, "Okay, you need to go find out. Like, you need to run a culture. It could be staph. It could be, there's so many things, right? It could be, and I'm not a veterinarian, so you need to go find that out for sure." But I know my limits, but even I sometimes am like, "Oh, that's probably just a tick." I've had people say that their dog has a tumor, and I'm like, "Okay, but that's a tick."
Or a nipple.
Oh.
Yeah, I've seen the nipple. Oh, that's funny. I have actually seen the nipple. So sometimes it's quite obvious, and sometimes it you think it is, or you hear. Have you heard this before? Well, like in the case you're just talking about, the penicillin. Well, it won't do any harm if I give it. They think it doesn't do any harm, even if they're wrong on the diagnosis. They think there's no harm in giving it. How do you deal with something like that, or how would you respond to that?
There can be huge harm. If you have a dog who has an overwhelming bacterial infection and you give them a steroid, you may have just suppressed their immune system and made it so that now there's no way they're going to fight off that infection. When you give an antibiotic, Gwen just had the runaround for the past 3 weeks over whether or not to give antibiotics. I'll let her tell that story. But if you give the wrong antibiotic, you're building antibiotic resistance. And we actually have a veterinarian who's doing a lot of work on antibiotic resistance that Gwen is in the process of tracking down, so that we can do a great interview with that person, because he's actually doing a lot of research on it. And we we need to be the guardians of antibiotic usage, because overuse and misuse of antibiotics is causing antibiotic resistance that is, I mean, right now we have so many things, diseases and things trying to spit us off the face of the earth between natural disasters and medical disasters, that sure, let's get some more antibiotic resistant strains of bacteria out there that just add to the fun. Just add it to the puddle.
That's a good point, because I think that we're, as educators, we're doing a really good job of getting people to understand that you shouldn't put your pet on an antibiotic because he got a little tiny scratch. But a lot of times you don't hear people talking about the wrong antibiotic. They think there's just an antibiotic and there's no antibiotic and there's no in between. So Gwen, can you share the story with us of what Dr. Morgan's telling us what happened?
Yeah, so something that I feel like is not talked about enough, even though I feel like we talk about it all the time, but we still get this question, is, if you have suspicion that your pet has a UTI. So for cats, a lot of times they'll start peeing in somewhere else that's not the litter box, right? So that's just one example. That's what happened to me with my dad's cat that I was pet sitting. She's been under a lot of stress. Cats can get stress-induced cystitis, and they can get other things that make them pee outside the litter box. It could just be, she's in a new place. So when I went in, I just go to the specialty center because they have all the machines and diagnostic capabilities there. And I said, okay, I want blood work. I want a urinalysis. I want a urine culture.
They're like, who's this person?
Because we suspect a UTI. And I want an ultrasound, because those things might not be enough to tell if she has stones. So I just wanted to go in and do the least amount of time back and forth to the vet, because that stresses out a cat especially. And that would kind of rule out most of the things that we were concerned about. And I immediately got pushback on the urine culture. Well, why don't we just, if her urinalysis comes back with bacteria, we'll just give you an antibiotic. And I was like, but you can actually guess wrong without the culture. You don't know which antibiotic is actually appropriate. And sometimes that guess may be correct. And that's, in this case, the best case scenario. Or you guess wrong. You've put this pet on an antibiotic for a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, a month, however long it takes the owner to take them back. Then you start from scratch. You do another urinalysis, maybe do a urine culture, and then you try a different antibiotic. So that's a month that this pet has been struggling, and the proper diagnostics weren't run in the first place, versus me coming in and saying, okay, right off the bat, I want a urine culture, because if we're going to give this pet, especially this is in my case, it was a senior cat with a history of GI issues, I'm not going to give that cat antibiotics unless I'm really sure it's appropriate and it's the correct antibiotic. So I always tell people, when they are concerned about a UTI or any type of urinary issue, urinalysis plus the urine culture if there's any type of bacteria. And you can talk more about that if you want to expand upon the diagnostic section. But that was my last experience with urine cultures.
I see it all the time. Constantly. Dogs and cats getting dewormed when they haven't even seen if they have worms.
Oh, yes.
Nonstop. Oh, bladder infection, here's your antibiotics, without actually knowing. And cystitis is so common in cats, and so many cats are getting put on antibiotics for cystitis, and it's frustrating. So thanks for sharing that, because hopefully that'll kind of let people understand the differences of why, and how smart you were to do that. Sorry that you got pushback. How do you get pushback on something like that? The vet should be like, oh, thank God, yeah, sure, I'll run all these tests.
Yeah, and it's crazy, because I was sitting here and I was like, I am willing to pay the money. I was like, because I know that this is what I have to do. If it makes the bill higher, in my opinion, I don't really have a choice in this scenario, because that's the best decision for this pet. So I went in there saying, I'm willing. I know this is going to be expensive. I'm willing to pay the bill. This is what I'm looking for. And I still got pushback where they're like, are you sure you don't just want some Clavamox? I'm like, I'm sure. And then my urine culture mysteriously disappeared from the lab when they never sent it in. And, it's all these things that I don't even think it's malicious most of the time. I think it's just, we rush so much to a solution that these veterinarians aren't looking at the whole picture, or they're not willing to talk to the owner about proper diagnostics, whether it's really expensive or takes more time, whatever their kind of reasoning is. But I think something that my mom taught veterinarians that worked with her that I thought was really valuable is she would always tell them, it's not your job to gauge how much this pet parent is willing to spend on their pet. It's your job to give them your professional medical advice and lay out options and work with them. It's not, you shouldn't just judge someone as soon as they walk in, because you never know. Someone may say, this is my everything. I have savings, or I have health insurance for them, or whatever the case is. And so I think a lot of veterinarians are just, they're not taking the time to really look at the whole picture and advocate for the animals, honestly.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Okay, so let's get into some of these questions. So Michelle asks Dr. Morgan, what would be your number one recommendation for collapsing trachea?
There's no really good treatment for it. I actually have a really good blog on the website, drjudymorgan.com, on collapsing trachea, where I talk about different herbs, different food supplements. Basically, the trachea is cartilage rings. So when we're giving supplements or designing additions to the diet, we want to be supporting cartilage. But it also is sort of a muscular ligamentous piece. That's actually the piece that's collapsing on the top of the trachea. So you've got your rings that go about 3/4 of the way around, and then you've got this soft tissue thing, and basically that's falling in. So we also want to support muscle. Oh, here comes my favorite person. Thank you, honey. It's martini time at our house. Listen, you get me on at 8 o'clock at night, you're getting the martinis. So we also have to support, muscle is controlled by the digestive system. So we've got to have a really good diet base for these guys, but then we've got to support the cartilage and the muscle. There are herbs that can help. Electroacupuncture sometimes can help, but it's really important to have the humidity of the air just right for those guys. Too humid, they get some swelling down there. It's not good for them. Too dry, it's irritating to the airways. For those of you who are living with incredible smoke in the sky right now, and actually I have to do a radio interview about that tomorrow with somebody in California. That's really hard for these dogs because the more irritation there is to the airway, the more collapse, the more cough. Those guys don't do really well with stress and excitement. Their life has to be pretty chillax. We don't like to use collars on them. We like to use harnesses on them. But the blog has a lot more information and it links to supplements. And I'm hoping that your audience is well versed in how blogs work. But I wrote a great blog, and I can't even, it might have been my DM blog. And somebody sent me an email and said, well, where do I get all those things you were talking about in there? I'm like, you click on the ones that are underlined and it takes you to a direct link to the products. She didn't understand that about blogs. So when you're reading blogs and you see something highlighted or underlined, if you click on it, it'll take you to another article that is joined to it, or it'll take you to the products that are being talked about.
That's awesome. There's so many questions coming in, but really quick, what do you think is causing collapsing trachea? Because, years ago, 25, 30 years ago, back when I was working as a vet tech, we never saw it. What's happening? What do you think is causing it?
Genetics.
Okay. 100%.
Poor breeding. I think 90%.
Okay.
Poor breeding. And poor diet, because we're not supporting their systems. But we see it in dogs that are well fed and everything's working well, and we still get it. I think that inflammation in the body contributes to it, because it may be, and we haven't done enough research on it, but what if the nerves that supply that muscle have been attacked because we get autoimmune thyroiditis. We get the laryngeal paralysis, which is an autoimmune attack on the nerves that are supplying the larynx. So what if this collapsing trachea is also an autoimmune attack on the nerves that make that muscle work? And now those nerves don't work anymore, so that muscle doesn't function anymore. So it's really about, it's a lifetime of care, particularly if you have a breed that is prone to this. You have Shih Tzus, Lhasas, Yorkies, Maltese. You have a breed who's prone to collapsing trachea. You better keep their inflammatory markers very, very low for their entire life. You want to make sure that you're on top of that. So feeding good diet from the start and keeping inflammation down in the body, not allowing them to become obese. That's a huge maker of inflammation. So I think there's a lot of things that go into it, but an awful lot of it, because if we look at which breeds are prone to it, we see a much higher level of it in certain breeds.
Okay. You're so brilliant. Like I love how
It's the thinking on my feet.
This is just scratching the surface. I seriously, I told her the other day, we were just talking about this. I was like, we need just a camera to follow you around, because she's like this all the time.
Yeah.
Like, we just had a camera to capture. Like, she just, like, she'll think of something so wild and crazy that, you know, she's like, oh, you should ask your vet if there's a tumor in their salivary gland. And we're like, what? And then a few weeks later, she'll be like, I went to my vet and asked them to look, and there's a tumor on salivary gland, and 9 vets missed it. And I'm like, I just was like, hey, what do you think of this? And
we had one of those. Got it I diagnosed it by an email. I'm like, you're missing the tumor in this dog's throat.
Yeah, it's intuitive, which is part of the reason why I don't think every veterinarian can be a holistic veterinarian. Mm-hmm. I don't think every veterinarian can be a good conventional veterinarian, because a lot of it, being a doctor and being able to talk to humans, you get misdiagnosed. Can you imagine if you don't have an intuitive veterinarian who can't feel and listen and think outside of the box, how horrible that is? So that's why we're so lucky to have not only a holistic integrative veterinarian, but one that is intuitive, because otherwise you're right back to kind of square one. Okay, now I just give this to this pet, this herb, right?
Well, yeah, and we have to be really careful with herbal medicine. Like when we're treating a cancer case with herbs, we have to be careful that we're not trying to do herbal chemo, because that's not what we're doing. We're not trying to, and that's one of the things. I have some clients, they do a ton of research before they talk to me. And so they come to me with this list of 700 things that they're giving because they read that, well, this one kills cancer cells and this one kills cancer cells this way and this one does it this way. And I'm like, that's not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to do herbal chemo. We're trying to support the body. We're trying to get the body to heal itself, which is a lot more than just throwing a lot of things that kill cancer cells at them. So we have to be careful that we don't try to put them into a one size fits all. Like Gwen's dog had a mast cell tumor on her tail. She ended up having the tail amputated just because of the location where it was. We weren't going to be able to get clean margins, and amputating the tail and making her taking away that whip that she used to just torture us with. It was a great decision. Some people did not like that decision. They're like, oh my gosh, you're cutting off your dog's tail. How can you do that? Now, if it was a leg, I might have had to look at it a little differently, but Mila is absolutely fine with her little nubby tail. She wags the whole butt. And it was fine. And so I wrote a blog on it, and I gave my sort of cocktail of nutraceutical supplements and herbs and food, and what we did for Mila and what I've done for a lot of mast cell tumor cases. But that doesn't mean that that's the exact cocktail for every single mast cell dog. But if you can't afford to have a consultation, if you don't have a holistic veterinarian, it at least gives you a starting point, and it gives you a bunch of things that you can put in your toolbox to try to keep your dog or cat free of more mast cell tumors. So, and we just added something to that blog not too long ago. Gwen sent me a text and said, hey, I think we should add vitamin C or something to the blog. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. because she does a ton of research and then she comes up with these new things for me.
Well, this question is going to come to you, Gwen. Sonia asks, you could both answer it, but Sonia asks, do you think feeding my dogs raw dog food is better for them? I have a poodle and a Maltese.
That's a good question. So I mean, here is where I stand on most things. And of course, Mom, chime in if you disagree. But for me personally, I think I get a little bit frustrated when I'm on social media or whatever, and I see people saying things like, you have to feed raw food, or if you cook the nutrient, or if you cook the food, you deplete all the nutrients, things like that. I do think for the majority of the pets that we have seen, a raw diet works fantastically well for them. Of course, I'm talking about very high quality raw brands, like All Provide is the one that I'm feeding my pets right now. But that doesn't work for every single pet. Especially, we see a lot of times as they get a little bit older, they may like a gently cooked version a little bit better. And by no means is a gently cooked diet depleting all of the nutrients. So I would say in most cases, yes, we do like a raw diet. A lot of our pets eat a raw diet, but we've had plenty of pets as well that just don't do as well on a raw diet as they do as on a high quality, gently cooked diet. So I think for most of these cases, the answer is it depends. We like to not treat, but we like to talk to each individual pet parent and really find out what they're going through and what works best for them and their animal. So I guess that answers your question most of the time, but not all the time.
To define, I think people get lost in the word raw diet and they just think it means anything that isn't cooked. Can you define what raw diet would mean to both of you, what that means?
So a true raw diet is going to be one that is minimally processed. I mean, if we want to really get down to what's a raw diet, if you feed a whole rabbit, that's a raw diet. That's minimally processed. The dog's getting or the cat's getting the whole beast. And from there, we can take it to, okay, we chop off the head because people don't want to see that. We chop off the feet, we chop off the tail. We don't use the fur, although a true raw diet, you actually would include the fur in there because it actually has a lot of good minerals in there. I have to say, I don't feed fur to my guys. It might, like when I get ground quail, that might have the feathers in there too. And some of the ground rabbit, I get whole rabbit ground sometimes. So it really depends. The next step that you can take from a raw is then you grind it up and freeze it. It's still raw, but it has been minimally processed. It got ground, it got frozen, it got stored, it got shipped. From there, we can go to dehydrated, which it had a heat applied to it, so it's technically not really raw anymore, but it's pretty close. Freeze dried raw. Well, that's gone basically through a bunch of freeze thaw cycles. I never knew how that worked until I took the course on how to make pet food and learned how the freeze thaw cycle works for that. And it's actually pretty cool. Some people will not feed freeze dried because they don't consider it a true raw. We have some pets that absolutely will not touch a frozen raw or a true raw product because the texture to them is, especially if they used to be a kibble eater, they're like, ew, it's like slimy, and the animals won't eat it. But they'll go for a freeze dried, and that's the best way that I have found to get cats to switch over from kibble to a raw food. You start with a freeze dried, and you don't rehydrate it at the beginning, and they're like, "Oh, it's still got a little crunchiness, kind of like a kibble would have." Oh, and it tastes really good. Once they get addicted to it, then you start adding the moisture to it, and you can get most cats switched over. I don't have a problem with freeze dried food. We eat a lot of freeze dried food. My cats will not eat true raw. My cats will not eat frozen raw. My cats love freeze dried raw. They will jump through hoops for that stuff. So you got to go with what the animal will eat, and you have to go with what works best for them. So a lot of these animals that have food stagnation problems where they're burping a lot, they've got that really foul odor to their breath, even though their teeth are clean. That's food that's stagnating and sitting in their stomach and fermenting, and it's not comfortable for them. And so then they don't eat very well. We have herbs for that, but we also change the diet for that. And if you have first of all, if you're feeding raw, you want to feed it at room temperature or slightly warm. Do not feed it cold out of your refrigerator. Do not feed cold out of the freezer. It has to be at body temperature in order for them to digest it well. From a Chinese medicine standpoint, you put cold in, you get a whole bunch of stagnation. It's like you take water, you put liquid water in your freezer, and it turns into ice cubes. When you take that cold food and you put it into the body, it kind of congeals and goes bleh. And over time the body says, I just can't process this anymore. I'm just not going to do it. And we get food stagnation, and it's a huge problem. So I don't even remember what the original question.
Your definition of
what's
raw.
real raw?
And
Did I answer that?
Gave your opinion on people that say that you should feed raw.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why
it depends.
The definition of it is because sometimes people will come to me and they say their feed. I try to not use the term raw. I try to use the term species appropriate or biologically appropriate diet.
Perfect.
Because a lot of times people will come to me and, their dog will be all inflamed and all this. And then they inevitably will say, well, I feed him raw. And then I say, what is that? And they will say chicken and rice. And so I have to get into a conversation about that's not really when we're talking about raw, because I think that's the problem in our industry is that people are hearing the word raw and they think they can give raw chicken and some rice and they have a diet that's completely.
I used to like the clients that would come in and say, I feed raw. Oh, good. What are you feeding? Because I'm thinking this is great. And then I get the answer. I go to Walmart and I get the big, huge ground burger things. And I put that in his bowl. And I'm like, oh, ground beef.
Yeah. So,
okay.
I wish as an industry, we would the word raw. I really do. I wish that we could just collectively all swear that we won't use it anymore. Because I feel like it brings a better conversation when you say species appropriate. People go, oh, what is that? But when you say raw, they're like, oh, cool, I'm just going to pull some stuff out of my refrigerator, like some ground hamburger, and then that's going to be a diet. And so I really wish the word raw would be wiped out of the conversation. But
all right, Gwen, we have to work toward that.
So I don't actually I don't actually have that issue with the word raw. We have a similar issue when people talk about home cooking. So when people come to us and say, oh no, I'm home cooking, that's code for chicken and rice usually.
Yeah,
for us.
It's code for chicken and rice.
But if raw is, I don't think we haven't had, because most of the people don't do raw chicken and rice. I feel like they cook the chicken.
They cook the rice. Well, no, exactly. They think
raw rice.
No,
okay.
Think that chicken and rice cooked, so that's the problem, is a raw diet, because they think the word raw diet doesn't even
it's not kibble from a bag.
Okay.
It's this concept, and I've had it happen numerous times where I have to go, well, first off,
yeah, we have a similar issue with word home cooking, so it's similar. Yeah.
I just think as an industry, if we could collectively get these definitions out, we would do
we had to vote on them.
With the veterinarians that are not on board with it, because to be fair, when a veterinarian hears your dog is sick and then you just go to the vet and say, I'm feeding a raw diet, if that veterinarian doesn't ask the better questions, like what does that mean, and the dog is sick, they've got a sick dog in front of them who's eating a raw diet, which could mean chicken and rice. But you need that veterinarian to ask more questions to find out. So that's why I just
as soon as they hear raw diet, they go, oh my God, he's got bacteria. We all have to don our booties, gloves, masks, hats, and gowns, and we can't touch the dog anymore.
My veterinarian put raw diet under the list of problems. That's how they categorized it for my veterinarian. So that was fun. I was
Well,
like, problems. I was like, what? This dog has like whatever it was, like a completely torn cruciate ligament. And you think one of her problems is her raw diet? What?
and
Anyway,
it keeps them from diagnosing the pet correctly because now they fixate on, oh, as soon as they hear raw diet, their ears go up and they can't see past it. Their blinders are on, and now
Yeah.
everything is the raw diet's fault. So
Yeah.
it's
Now all of
I
a sudden, it's got to be an overwhelming bacterial infection from the contaminated food that your dog is spewing all over your house.
I got 3 phone calls from technicians making sure that I was not going to bring any of her raw diet into the building.
vet techs are the worst. I'm sorry if there's any vets watching or
Oh,
make it really difficult. So
I made the mistake of sending raw diet with the dog who had to spend the night for his surgery, and again they donned their caps and masks and gowns and gloves, put the dog in isolation, did this with the baggie of food, and handed it back to my husband and said, "You can go home and cook that and bring it back."
yeah.
And he did.
That's what I did. I was like, I'll simply cook it for you.
how
There you
about
go.
for you? Okay, so Mary Elizabeth asks, and this is a great question, Mary. Best resources to learn how to read your dog's blood work.
Mary, you're gonna get me in trouble here with this question because I have not done the project that I was supposed to do regarding this topic.
So in my supporters group, my Facebook supporters group, which is which is only $10 a month. But in my Facebook supporters group, we've actually spent the last few weeks discussing lab work. So I have these wonderful PowerPoints on how to read a CBC. What does it mean if your platelets are high? What does it mean if it's a normocytic normochromic anemia? I can make your head spin with this stuff. Why is the amylase high when your dog has kidney failure? Does that mean he really has pancreatitis, or is that just part of his kidney disease? So I've been going through that. The great thing is that in going through this for the supporters, I'm now building a library of PowerPoints and videos, which will go into our other website, which is Dr. Judy U, which is our educational website. And it will be sold as a package course that you can take to learn what those numbers are, when to ask questions. Somebody sent me an email today and they said, all right, here's my 2 dogs. This one, we're okay over here. This one, the lab results came out really weird. And so the veterinarian chose 2. The bilirubin was high and the triglycerides were high. And so he said, well, I'll rerun those and double check them. And then on the rerun, they came back even higher. And they weren't even close. Like the numbers were so ridiculously out of the ballpark. So she sent it to me and she said, should I be worried? And there's a lot of other things on the tests that are out of whack too. I said, well, the only worry you should have is that was a really lousy blood sample. Right at the bottom, it said the blood sample was hemolyzed, which means the red blood cells were broken down. And so all the things that are inside red blood cells, like phosphorus, were released into the serum that they were using for testing. And it was lipemic, which means the serum was really fatty. Fat in the serum is going to interfere with those blood tests, particularly since they were run on an in-house testing analyzer. Those are so inaccurate, which is why we always send our lab work out to the big labs. So I said, what you need to do is fast your dog for 12 hours, go back, insist on a new sample. The new sample needs to be sent out to the lab, not run in-house. And you need to get real results, because these results aren't even close to there's no diagnostics here. You got nothing. And hopefully she doesn't have to pay for a new sample. She may have to. But it was a bad sample. And so you guys do need to know that kind of stuff. You do need to know, first of all, whenever you have lab work run, you need to get a copy. Because I did a consultation last week. The woman had a copy of the lab work. It had been a week and the veterinarian hadn't even called her yet. And silly me, I blurted out, "Wow, what are you doing about this bone marrow cancer?" And she said, "What bone marrow cancer?" No one had picked it up. The dog had been sick for 3 years and it was showing up on the lab work for 3 years and no one had picked it up. You need to get copies, and everything that you see is out of the ordinary. You need to question. You need to say, hey, his platelets are over 1 million. They're supposed to be 400,000. What's that about?
Yeah.
You need to ask. So always get a copy. And I do recommend that you get lab work every year. I don't care if you have a young dog or a young cat, get lab work every year, because then you have trends. You can keep them in your little notebook. You could, if you're a spreadsheet person, you can make little spreadsheets and you can compare the numbers year after year. Then you can see trend. Gwen would do it. I don't know how to make a spreadsheet. But you get to see trends over the months or years. And if you have a sick pet that has chronic medications, chronic conditions, you want to be doing that lab work every 3 months, and you want to look at those trends. And if for instance, I have cavaliers, they all have heart disease, they're all on a bunch of medication. Sooner or later, their kidneys are probably going to, well, they have a good chance of failing. They're probably not going to, but they have a good chance of failing. I do a lot of things to protect their kidneys. But there's a good chance with those medications, they're going to develop some kidney failure. They're going to develop some congestion in their liver as their heart failure gets worse. By doing labs every 3 months, I can track that. And as soon as I see things starting to trend up or to see differences, it's like, oh my God, okay, I got to react. I have to change my herbal protocol. I have to change my nutraceuticals. I have to change my diet. When you do that and you can see those trends and you've got the copies, your veterinarian, let me tell you, they don't have time. They're not going to make their spreadsheets. They're not going to look at, they're going to go, yeah, it's close to normal. I don't care. Good enough, close enough. We're not playing horseshoes. And so you want to jump on that stuff pretty quickly. And so we are going to have a course on reading lab work. Gwen and I are going to complete that. My supporter group, they are kind of being the guinea pigs for me finding the holes in what I'm teaching.
What's this? How do we get into the supporter group? You said it's $10 a month.
It's $10 a month. It's like the coolest thing ever. So Facebook, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago, they started this new program to see Facebook's really funny because they've banned me from advertising for life. So I can't spend money on Facebook, but I can make money on Facebook. It's really weird. I got banned from PayPal too, but that's another long story. But so they started this thing and they beta tested it with people who had a big enough following and people who were interactive with their following. Like if I never talked to my people, if I never answered questions, then I wouldn't have been invited to do it. But so if you have a big enough page and you have enough followers and interaction with people, you can actually solicit supporters. So if you go to my Facebook page, which is Judy Morgan DVM, if you go to just Judy Morgan, you get pictures of my kids, my mom, I don't know.
If
you go to Judy Morgan DVM,
it's not about me.
Yeah, her kid. My grandkids, I should say. But if you go to Judy Morgan DVM, right under the big banner, there's a blue button that says Become a Supporter. And when you click on that, then there's this weird video that Hugh and I did like 3 years ago when we had no freaking clue what we were doing, that talks about supporting our spaniels in the lifestyle to which they have become accustomed with your $10 a month. But what you get is specific content that is not on the regular page. And there's a way that we tag it. It's hashtag supporters so that only supporters can see it. And it's great. I do Ask Me Anything with them a lot, and it's the rapid fire questions. And then sometimes I'll make PowerPoints and say, okay, we're gonna do a presentation. Once I get into my new office and my new studio, we'll go back to we did a lot of TCVM diagnoses, where we talked about the different Chinese medicine personalities and how they all interact. And I would present cases. And, people, for the most part, the supporters have the yin and yang book. So they have a little bit of background knowledge. When you come in as a newbie, it's really scary because we do it as a question and answer. Not only are you asking me questions, but I'm asking you questions. So I'll say, here's this dog. He's really vocal. He's an Irish setter. He's bright red. He talks all the time. Which personality is he? And then, I play Jeopardy music while you guys figure it out. And then we'll talk about, okay, well, his symptoms are X, Y, and Z. Is that a stagnation? Is that a deficiency? Is that an excess? And then you guys have to figure that out. And so we do kind of fun and games, but it's to teach you how to figure these things out. And it's fun. I love our supporter group. It's not huge. It's getting bigger, which makes the Ask Me Anythings really crazy.
If Mary was to go onto there, would there still be the information?
Yes.
Still access the information on how to read lab work?
If you become a supporter, you'll have access to our supporter videos.
Because I really wants to, and probably a lot of our listeners really want to learn how to read their lab work. That's important for sure.
And like I said, we will make it a course in Dr. Judy U. So you'll be able to download it and keep it. All these things, just it's time.
Yeah. No one else is doing it. You should do it. So Janice asks, we're going to switch over and talk a little bit about vaccines. So Janice lives in Los Angeles, and she asks, leptospirosis. Shoot, I just lost it. Sorry. Leptospirosis and now influenza is a major issue. My 14-month, 5-pound Maltipoo is due for all vaccines. Rabies vaccine is mandatory. Is lepto and influenza necessary?
So there was a big article that came out, and I did a Facebook Live on this a couple days ago. So if you go to my Facebook page and scroll back down a little bit, you'll find my live on lepto, because one of my followers was nice enough to send me the article. And then I saw the second article that came out talking about influenza as well. So I think what I saw yesterday or today is they've diagnosed 51 cases of leptospirosis. That is a huge outbreak. That's a huge cluster. If you think about how many dogs are in West LA, I mean, it's not that many, but lepto is pretty deadly. I hate the vaccine. I particularly hate the vaccine in dogs under 10 pounds. I didn't even stock the influenza vaccine. So you need to look at the lifestyle of the dog. Where does your dog go? Now, if you're living in West LA, and the reason it's a problem, homeless camps, rats. The rats are carrying the lepto. God knows how many of the homeless people have lepto. They're pretty sick if they do have it, because the problem is it's zoonotic, which means it can transmit between animals and people. The vaccine is not 100%. The vaccine protects, I'll say that loosely, protects against 4 of the strains of lepto, and there are 7 out there that could potentially be spread to our dogs. It is a highly reactive vaccine, and if your dog has never had it, you have to get a series of 2 to 4 weeks apart. Now, this person has a 5-pound dog who is due for rabies, due for Lord knows if other vaccines, distemper, hepatitis, parvo, and now we want to add on lepto and influenza. The one thing I can say is you can do titers for distemper and parvo, and distemper and parvo vaccines last a minimum of 3 to 5 years. So if you have a veterinarian who is saying you have to get that every year, first of all, say, no, I'm not doing that one. Put that one on the back burner. Lepto, it is a problem. How do you protect your dog? You don't let your dog lick from puddles on the sidewalk, because it has to be in moisture, and you put booties on your dog when you are walking outside. And one of my favorites is Walkie Paws. This has been the best advertisement for her. She made them for her little white 5-pound dog that lives in New York City and sleeps in her bed. And she said, ew, I don't want his feet walking on the sidewalks of New York City and sleeping in my bed. So she made Walkie Paws. They're amazing. It's WALKEE. Walkie Paws. WALKEE paws. They're waterproof boots with leggings, and then they all come together with this little toggle at the top that just ties over the dog's back. They're really easy to put on and off. They keep your dog's feet clean. So then you don't have to worry about your dog walking through that puddle of rat urine or people urine or Lord knows what else is in the cities. I don't live in the city. So for me, I would try to avoid the vaccine because it's a 5-pound dog and they like to have anaphylactic shock after getting that vaccine. The other thing is influenza. Does your dog go to boarding, daycare, grooming? Is it going to be hospitalized? Is it in a high risk situation? I don't recommend the vaccine. I hate the I don't get the flu vaccine. I don't like influenza vaccines. You have to look at your dog's risk status. Do you live in a single family home? Do you live in an apartment? Do you live somewhere where your dog is not going to come into close contact with 50 other dogs? That's where your dog's going to get influenza. The lepto, that's a rat urine thing. So you gotta look at where you walk the dog, what you're doing with that. If your dog is going to get it, let's just say worst case scenario, God forbid, your dog needs to get the rabies, your dog needs to get the lepto, your dog needs to get influenza, your dog has to get distemper, your dog has to get parvo. You've got, 5 veterinary visits ahead of you, and they have to be 2 to 3 weeks apart. You cannot expect your 5-pound dog to get 4 vaccines in one day because each vaccine is not just one. Like the DHLPP is like 12 in one. You cannot expect your 5-pound dog to handle that and not crash. You end up with autoimmune hemolytic anemia. You end up with autoimmune thyroiditis. You end up with autoimmune platelet disease. It causes so many problems. So if you decide that you need all those things, you are going to make an appointment for the first lepto. Then you're going to make an appointment for the first influenza because that's a series of 2 as well if they haven't had it before. Then you can go in and get, but they won't separate out the DAP, so you're going to have to get that together. Then a couple weeks later, now we got to go get another lepto. Then a couple weeks later, we got to go get another influenza. And somewhere in there's going to be a rabies, but they all have to be separated. You cannot bombard a 5-pound dog. You're asking for a disaster.
We're so often selling out our pets' health for convenience.
Uh-huh.
And I see it all the time. And it's, the veterinarians need to say, I'm sorry, no, you're going to come back. And
they're never going to say that. They want the convenience. They want you to come in. They will jab your dog with 6 injections at the same time. Same for cats. Not funny, but not funny. So today we had to go to the vet clinic where the crematorium is to pick up the ashes for Shayna, who passed away on Sunday. And so while, of course, they're on curbside, so we're sitting at curbside, and I had to call in to the front desk and say, I'm here to pick up my dog's ashes. And she said, okay, let me put you on a brief hold. That's all fine. So I'm listening to the speech while I'm sitting on hold, and it was about cats and feline leukemia and feline age. It was educational. It was great, except for the fact that they said all cats should be tested and vaccinated for feline leukemia. Okay, my cats don't go outside. Why would I give them a feline leukemia vaccine? They have zero exposure. Why? Why do you want me to bring my cat in for a feline leukemia and feline AIDS test and a feline leukemia vaccine when they aren't exposed to other animals?
No, it goes on and on and on. Yeah. And it's heartbreaking. But since we're talking about cats, we have another question that came across from Lana. She says, I have an asthmatic cat who has episodes of restricted air and also sneezes at times, but always has a clear nose. He has a puffer. I also give allergy drops and colloidal silver. Anything else I can do to help lessen these?
Yep. Herb called Bufesan, Bufeisan. You can email us, Gwen at drjudymorgan.com. So that is asthma in cats is a lung yin deficiency. There's not enough moisture for those lungs. Those cats need fresh air. If you are living on the West Coast, I apologize because your cat can't get fresh air right now. Not You can't open your windows. You can't bring fresh air in, but they need fresh air. They need moist air. So a lot of times I have my clients take that cat in the bathroom every time somebody is taking a shower, close the door, let them get a nice good steam treatment. Lungs, most people have never seen what a lung actually looks like outside the body, but it looks like a sponge, and it should be damp, like a wrung out sponge. They should be damp like a wrung out sponge. You don't want too much moisture in there that they're heavy and wet and you can't get air through the cells of the sponge. But it has to be moist. So if you pick up a dry sponge and try to wipe off the spill on your counter, it's not going to do a good job. But if you have a damp sponge that's been wrung out, it'll do a great job sucking that up, and then you can wring it back out. That's what the lungs are supposed to work like. And so most of these cats have a lung yin deficiency, which is a moisture deficiency. The Bufesan replaces that. And those cats absolutely should not, well, no cat, but particularly these cats, should not be on a dry diet, because that is drying out those lungs even more. These cats need moisture. Their lungs are seeking moisture. They need a nice high moisture diet. So I'm hoping that your cat is willing to eat canned or raw, something that is very high moisture, because dry food is going to make that problem get worse and worse and worse.
Great. Gwen, guess what we got? A suggestion. Debbie says, Gwen, what about integrative veterinary technician certificate, if not vet school?
Oh, so we get questions a lot where people they say, I follow what you guys talk about. I'm really upset about the canine or feline nutrition space. I want to make a difference. A lot of them are either vet techs or they come from the human side, like human nutrition. And they say, I want to make a difference. I want to learn. I want to get certified. What can I do? Or on the flip side, we see people on social media and whatever else saying, oh, well, you shouldn't feed that diet unless it was formulated by a veterinary nutritionist, or you need to go see a veterinary nutritionist. So we kind of get it from all angles, where some people want these credentials behind your name, and there are these other people that really aren't previously qualified in their education, trying to move into the nutrition space. And so that's why, we have people coming to us on a daily basis that are just flat out confused. And they're like, I don't even know who to trust. I have these marketing campaigns from big pet food companies telling me one thing, these nutritionists telling me another thing, these Facebook groups telling me another thing.
I don't know how. I honestly don't know how. I just had a consultation with a woman the other day, and she's so frustrated. And I said, I get it. I don't know how you couldn't be, because there's so much information. The only thing I can offer is my experience that I can share. That's all I can do. I'm not a veterinarian. I did go get a nutrition certificate to have something behind me, but I don't rely on that as much as I rely on just 36 years of grinding into this and learning and watching and experiences and those kind of things. But you're right. There are people that go out and get a nutrition certificate but have no experience. They just took a class. And I would far rather have the experience than my certificate. I guarantee you, like hands down, the experience and watching. Oh, I remember I used to be a person who would be all raw diet until I realized, hey, some dogs don't do well on raw. This isn't working. I've got dogs coming in that are not doing well. So yeah, but it was just, she's just suggesting, maybe I think maybe getting that.
I would love to have like and maybe we'll just make it one day, because I always get frustrated by these things until we just do it ourselves. But just a place where people can go to learn about small animal nutrition, because we have some people that have been a part of our community for years, before I was even an active part of the community, really. They're so knowledgeable and they give great advice, but their day job is like an accountant, or they work in IT, so they that's not what they have any type of education in. It's just their passion, and they've learned a lot, and they're just really smart people that can kind of put the whole thing together. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of
The
stinks.
problem for vet techs, I I don't know how I got this gig, but I got invited to speak at the Maryland State Veterinary Medical Conference one year. And and this was very early in my raw feeding, making pet food, not vaccinating, whatever. Um, and so I had a full day of lectures, and it was to the technician side. And the technicians were so frustrated. And what they said was the questions that I got, I'd give a great lecture, and the questions I got were, okay, I work in a practice where if a raw fed animal comes in, they won't treat it. Or if a raw fed, like my dog, he gets shoved into isolation. Everybody has to put on cap and gown and gloves and booties. And, he's going to infect everybody in the clinic. And so it's very frustrating for these technicians because a lot of them want to do what we are doing as far as diet, but they're working in a clinic where they are not allowed to even talk about that. And the only thing they can talk about is prescription diets. So, what I'd love to say is, hey, why don't you guys go find these holistic practitioners who are desperate for some good help, but there just aren't that many of them. Some of the technicians are great because they will, especially with this whole curbside thing, they literally will run out in the parking lot. And some of them have emailed me and said, look, the doctor I work for, she's all about this, this, and this. And I ran out in the parking lot with the dog afterwards and told them, you don't really want to do that. You need to do this. And I love it when I get those emails, and it's like, oh, yes. I got an email from a good friend today, Teresa Carpenter. She picked up her dog. We talked about her on our Facebook Live this morning. When she dropped off her dog, she had to sign an AMA because she didn't want the Bordetella vaccine while her dog was getting a dental. When she picked up the dog, she had a conversation with the practice, with the veterinarian, and said, I want to elevate this to the practice owner. And the veterinarian even said, I think the AMA might have been a little overkill. And then there was somebody else there picking up their dog, and Teresa said, hey, you really want to say no to the Bravecto? she said it was not received well. So we have our people out there. We have our minions who are trying to spread the word. It's a hard road. It is really hard road.
It is hard. It is hard. I wish that there was a good solution, but right now I struggle with it every time I have to take my pets to the vet. Yeah, it's really tough.
Yeah, I had a confrontation with a veterinarian over a Bordetella vaccine, and it was horror. It was the very first time. I always counsel my clients on how to handle the situations. Well, you could say this, you could say that, you could da-da-da. But I've never been in that situation. And boy, was it brutal. I was like, wow. And I know the response. I know how to respond. And I thought, God, my poor clients. Now I get it. I get why because they'll come back and they'll say, don't be mad, but I just did it because I didn't want to. She was just yelling at me. And so I just did it. And I'm like, wow, God, it really can be that bad.
Yeah. Well, Teresa's vet said to her, well, we are seeing a big outbreak of kennel cough. And I sent her back a text with the laughing emoji, and I said, well, if it had been parvo vaccine that you were due for or lepto vaccine that you were due for, there would have been a big outbreak of that as well. So,
but if you're due for, there's a huge outbreak of it.
Yeah, whatever it is you're due for, exactly. That's what there's going to be an outbreak of.
It's almost like it's like this is kind of a little off topic, but when you go to a rescue for a dog and you're like, I'm looking for a Maltese, and they're like, here, they come in black now. Here's whatever you're looking for, we got. They just make up these breeds so that you have it. I see that a lot, and I'm like, what the heck? I don't know. Anyway, so Kim says, thank you so much for this important session tonight. She's a huge fan and a follower of Dr. Morgan and her team. She has she says she's regarding treatment for seasonal allergies for senior dogs with heart disease. She is now, luckily, a patient for Dr. John Robb, is her new vet, but it's 7 hours away. But says that she's read that Benadryl is actually toxic. Do you have suggestions for her? Any guidance?
So on our website, Yay Gwen, she has broken. First of all, I have tons and tons of articles on allergies. But Gwen has actually broken down our products in the store. So if you click on shop, they're broken down by category. And there's a huge arthritis or allergy category. There's also arthritis, but there's an allergy category. Some of the things in there are just treats that are hypoallergenic, that sort of thing. We have so many tools in our toolbox for allergies. Instead of using steroids, we use plant sterols. They don't have the side effects that steroids do. I actually learned about plant sterols from a new client that came in. They had a German Shepherd with eosinophilic myositis, which is when the immune system attacks the nerves to the head, the chewing muscles. And most of these dogs, first, they go through a very painful period. They get loaded up on steroids, and their head muscles and jaw muscles literally shrink to nothing. So these are a skull with skin and hair on them and no muscle. And this dog, she brought him in. I never would have known he had eosinophilic myositis. And she said, "Oh, I never treated him with steroids." And I was like, "That's amazing. What are you doing?" She said, "I'm using plant sterols." And there's no side effects. The dog's never had a problem. He's done great. He got through his painful episode in a very short period of time and maintained all of his head muscle. So, seasonal allergies, I have a great blog on atopic dermatitis, which talks about the genetics and the inheritance of these seasonal allergies and how the parents of the dog are fed, how the puppies are fed when they're first put on solid food, and how you feed the dogs after that, and how far you can advance on not having symptoms. But some of these dogs that have atopic dermatitis, it's a genetic problem. You're not ever going to cure them. You don't cure them, you manage them. And what we look for is how many things can we throw at them to manage their disease, decrease the symptoms during the worst part of the season. We have WinPro Allergy Chews, which is a blood-based product. We have Great Wind Keeper, which is a Chinese herb for itching and scratching because that's the wind in the trees. We have PEA, which is a plant-based product that is an anti-inflammatory and best thing I've ever done for my dogs with their CM and SM, their neurologic problems. Been great for a lot of our arthritis and allergy dogs. So we have a whole. There are so many things in that toolbox that you can use. Never put all of your eggs in one basket. By the way, Gwen, I'm like overloaded with eggs. You got to take eggs. Never put all your eggs in one basket. And sometimes you have to layer these things on. You can't, if you have a severe allergy dog and they've got a 4-week window of life sucks right now, they're going to chew themselves raw. Gwen's dealing with Brandon's dog who wants to eat her feet off and has staining everywhere. You want to keep their diet as clean as possible, but for the environmental allergies, you need to figure out what's going to work for that 4-week period. And there's lots of things that you can layer on there. Lots and lots.
All right. We are, I try to keep this at about an hour so we don't take up anybody's time, but I'm going to ask one more question. I think it's an important one, and it's actually one that I'm going to be doing a podcast on really soon, and maybe Dr. Morgan will be that will come on, and not to put you on the spot, but I really do an entire episode on liver enzymes because I think that it definitely needs.
I have a blog on that. I mean a PowerPoint on that.
Oh, good. Well, we need to do it because it's a problem. And so I'm going to ask this question that comes across from Sylvia, and she says, "I've done 2 sets of blood work for my Maltese, and 2 of the most recent results showed up with elevated liver enzymes. I have her on a raw diet with added milk thistle. Is there any way to have an online consultation to go over this issue with you, Dr. Judy? I will be getting new blood work in a week."
Yeah, you get to email Gwen. What's the email, Gwen?
Oh,
Console at drjudymorgan.com.
Consult at drjudymorgan.com. We need all of your vet records and what's going on. We use diet, we use herbs, and we are going to request a lot of veterinary records, and I read through them. The good news is it's the raw diet. I do want to point out that right now there is a huge recall. It's been going on for about 7 months. Midwestern pet foods, aflatoxins. Aflatoxins are molds that are found on grains, so particularly corn, but any grains, and they cause liver failure, elevated liver enzymes. Hundreds of dogs, dogs and cats, hundreds of animals have died. And then someone sent me a thing today that said Midwestern also is now having a problem with vitamin D levels and vitamin D toxicity, which causes kidney failure. So, great. Go buy this food. Your pet can be in liver and kidney failure in a very short period of time. Yay. And then they wonder why we say, I think I'll make my own. You got to be really careful the companies that you buy from. Some of them are really above board and some are not, and they're getting sold right and left, which
so
clearly changes things.
yeah, that's going to be a really good consultation with you. I actually know this client. She's a client of mine. And so I know her dog's eating it really great. She has them on answers. But we know there's some
However,
changes.
that's changing.
I know that is changing. We do know that's changing, but she still has some of the old food. So I think that she's in any risk there. But the liver enzymes, the reason why I want to do a whole entire show on it is because it puts people into a panic.
And it should.
I know, but like slightest bit, and they think that the dog is going to die, and it becomes this. And I think that they need to learn how to read it better, learn what can make the liver enzymes go up, because a lot of times they instantly think it's cancer, and my dog has cancer, and that's doing it. And all the while they're giving them flea and tick medication and heartworm medication and over vaccines and poor diets, and the dog's overweight. So
well, and you also can't, I mean, I have a great presentation on liver enzymes, but you can't just look at the liver enzymes and not look at the whole profile. So we're looking at those liver enzymes, and then we need to look at the urine. Well, is he concentrating his urine? Is he making weird crystals in his urine that might indicate that maybe there's a liver shunt going on there? We had somebody recently, their dog had, they really wanted a consultation, and they told us the dog was making these really weird crystals in the urine, which are not common at all. And they're most commonly associated with a liver shunt. And I said, I will not even consider doing a consultation until you have an ultrasound and look at the dog's liver. And they were like, what? Our vet didn't mention that at all. Why? They just want to put the dog on a prescription diet. And I said, we need to know why the dog is making those crystals. Why, or actually, I think it was to the point of stones. Why is the dog doing that? There's an underlying cause. That's not a normal crystal. It's not like a struvite crystal that shows up with a high pH and infection. It's not an oxalate crystal that shows up with a low pH and high oxalate foods. We've got crystals that are associated with certain breeds. This dog wasn't one, and associated with liver shunts. We need to look. It's very frustrating when you get sort of half the diagnostics and they're like, well, we just want a diet to solve this. Okay, well, I still need to know what's causing this in order to make a diet to solve this.
Yeah. That's such a good point to cut you off, but so many times I hear that from people. Well, he's on a good diet. I'm like, okay, well, that's great. But there's so much more. Like they think that diet is the cause of everything and is the solution of everything. And I think that obviously I think diet is an important element, but it's certainly not the solution or the cause of everything. And so I absolutely agree with you.
I got to look at genetics. You got to look at what else is contributing to we have to look at animals as a whole. You can't just say, oh, he's got these crystals, do this. It's
Yeah.
like, well, why does he have these crystals? What else is making this up? Do we have a water source problem? I don't know. There's so many things go into it.
Stuff.
So if someone got their pet's blood work back and they looked at it and they saw elevated liver enzymes, what would be your next steps? Would you do an ultrasound? Would you repeat the blood work in a few weeks? What would be the things that you would suggest for someone in that position to do?
So it kind of depends which liver enzymes are elevated and how elevated they are. So, for instance, I did a consultation with someone whose dog's ALT was slowly, it wasn't even in a danger zone at all. Like, even if I saw this dog in practice, I'd be like, it's a little elevated, not a big deal. But she was one of those people who was doing lab work every 3 months. Her dog wasn't that old. And she saw this creep of it's here, it's here, it's here, it's here. And every time she had lab work done, it was creeping. And I didn't make her do a crap ton of diagnostics. I did do diet changes. I said, we got to drain the liver. The liver's got some stagnation. Let's just do some diet changes. Did the diet changes. The next lab work, boom, back to normal. But she was very astute. There was a fairly young dog. And she said, there's something in this diet that's not working for this dog. And we need to drain this liver somehow. And so she jumped on it very early. It depends which liver enzymes are up. Um, ALKphos, ALP. It's a very non-specific enzyme. It's not just liver. A lot of times that one, if that one's sky high, it could be Cushing's disease. It could be so many other things that could be contributing to it. When I see GGT go high, I kind of freak out and go, "Ooh, the liver's dying. We got cells dying. We got to jump on this. We got to figure out what's going on." So we look at what we have. Liver enzymes that are too low, BUN that is reading very, very, very low. Maybe his liver's not working. Maybe he has a really tiny liver. Maybe he has a shunt. So it can go either way, and diagnostics are important. So if something is suddenly really out of whack, we look at, did you change the diet? Did you change supplements? Was there something that you did differently? Or what's the age of the dog? It's a 12-year-old dog. Well, crap, let's get an ultrasound. Let's see if there's a cancer there. So it's going to be individualized for every single pet. It's the old answer. It depends.
That's why I like UTI, the UTI example, because I'm like, urinalysis, urine culture, ultrasound. Yeah, you good.
Right.
But
You need
with the
all that
liver,
information.
it's very complicated.
I have said for many years, you cannot be a good alternative medicine doctor unless you were a good traditional medicine doctor first. You have to know the normals, the abnormals. You have to know what those tests mean. And then you have to put that together with the other information that you have, like what's his tongue color? Where does he sleep? Does he like hot? Does he like cold? What's his skin doing? What do his foot pads look like? What does his nose look like? Our dog that we lost last weekend, Shayna, I actually took pictures of her nose because she had a really nice patent leather nose that over a period of about 2 weeks turned into what looked like dry, chapped desert soil
Wow.
over a period of 2 weeks. And when her nose started to do that, I said, we're losing this dog. I knew from her nose, her appetite sucked and we were struggling with that, but I knew from her nose, this is a losing battle. We are not going to win this.
Yeah.
I don't know what was her final demise, but I knew it was a losing battle. And it's a subtle thing. And frankly, the nose thing I noticed in my first year of practice, and I knew nothing about holistic medicine.
But you're intuitive by nature, I think.
I would never have said that, and I probably would not have said that even up until about 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, I think truthfully, I didn't used to say that about myself, but when you bring up the thing about the nose, I often tell people to have a really good relationship with their groomer. Find a because the groomers spot things because we
Mm-hmm.
see them. I have a grooming shop and I see dogs that are in there once a month And I have so many times said something's off. I could just tell the hair's thinning and you have a 2-year-old dog, or this is off a little, this is off. But, I just don't have a good resource out here. So they go to their veterinarian out here who tells them I'm crazy and I should mind my own business. But that's a brilliant thing. Little tiny things like that can be signs to so much bigger stuff by the time it finally comes to the nose, to the hair falling out. There's something internally that's going on that you got to pay attention to. Tell us really quick before we get off, tell me the names of all the books that Dr. Morgan has written.
All of them. Well, Yin and Yang Nutrition for Dogs is the one if you want to home cook for your dog for specific ailments. That's the one that we recommend. From Needles to Natural it talks a lot about her history, but it also has some really great information on vaccines, heartworm, flea, tick, diet. It really encompasses pretty much every topic that you could probably think of. And then Canine Kitchen Capers is a just for fun cookbook, which we recommend too. It has some extra recipes in it, but it's not as serious as the other two. And then we will hopefully have at least one, probably like 5 more, knowing Dr. Judy, books coming soon.
I'm 1 chapter away from finishing the next one. So
the next one or like the next 3. I swear, people don't even understand what it's like working with her, because she's like a mad scientist where she'll just text me and be like, I stayed up all night and wrote 3 books. And I'm like,
Ow.
Okay. She's
yeah,
like,
actually,
and then you read them and
I wrote
like,
another one last night in my head when I was trying to fall asleep. I wrote another one. It's called Mistakes I Made So You Don't Have to.
Perfect. See, there you go. And then, a month from now, it'll come to fruition. It'll be this masterpiece. But yeah, I get these random text messages. I pick up my phone and I'm like, what are we doing today? Oh, some new adventure. Okay.
That's amazing, though. Mistakes I made so you don't have to. I say that a lot when I'm interviewing people. I'll ask them, like, if I'm interviewing a groomer, I'll say, have you ever cut a dog? And they'll say no. And I'm like, okay, that means you're going to. So let's you're not going to get through this. So you're right. It's like experience. And I often tell people, I'm telling you this not because I think it will happen. It's because it's happened to me. And
it's going to happen.
I don't want you to make it happen. So I love the title of that book, and I can't wait for you to do it.
That one's more of a sort of a business book, but yeah.
I mean, I could probably write about veterinarians because I have gotten I'm one of those people where, like, even my mother is Dr. Judy. My father is also a veterinarian. I've been in the industry my entire life. I will go to the veterinarian with my own precious animal, and they'll be like, you must do this. And I'm like, oh no, I must do this for my pet. And then I'll call my mom, and if she's not available right then, I'm like, oh, okay, I guess so. I don't know. My mom's not answering.
I've gotten more weird phone calls and text messages, and she's like, I'm in the veterinary office. Oh, boy.
Yeah, and I'll just like panic, and I'm like, oh, and they'll be like, you have to do this right now, So anyway, I feel for all the other pet parents out there, because I go through these experiences, and it's very challenging. I don't have a good solution yet, but we're working very hard to try to change things. But
yeah,
it's tough.
It is tough, and I feel so sorry for my clients all the time. They come to me for example, I don't require a Bordetella vaccine on dogs that board with me. Mm-hmm. So, but you would think that would be a good thing, and instead people are like, well, then, is my dog going to get sick and die? And so I spend an enormous amount of time explaining it. And then we have a 2-week waiting period, and then they go to their vet and get it anyway. And I'm like, how did that happen? Oh, I know, you got bullied into it. And
it's really tough.
I feel
well, and you know what? That varies by state, because I'll never forget when I did the Women in the Pet Industry Network, the awards dinner. Shauna Shu, who ran it at the time, did this big thing where the 30 or whatever number of women who were up for different awards, we got makeup and hair and whatever. And so we all got to do this meet and greet. And I'm sitting next to this woman who runs a couple of really high-powered daycare centers in New York City. And so we introduce ourselves, and I'm like, so what do you do? And she tells me, and she's like, what do you do? And I tell her, and I'm like, yeah, the over vaccination of pets is really a problem. And she's like, well, I run daycares in New York City, and in New York City, we have to require that they have DHLPP, influenza, bordetella, rabies, blah, 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 like 75 different things. And I just looked at her and said, are you kidding me? She said, no, that's state law. And she said, and I heartily approve. And I went, we have nothing to talk about.
Yeah. It's interesting that we could do a whole nother topic on this, but I've talked to a lot of boarding facilities, and in my area, I know exactly what I'm required to on animals in order to have my license. But when I ask other boarding facilities, they inevitably will say, well, we have to require bordetella. It's for our kennel license. I'm like, actually, it's not. So I think a lot of times boarding facilities think it is, but they don't actually read it, because kennel cough is not required in the state of California to have a kennel license. It's not.
Very good.
But I'll ask 50 boarding facilities, why are you still requiring that vaccine? You know it doesn't work, and it's just creating more problem. And they go, well, we have to. No, you don't. So
Yeah.
I wonder, I am curious if the state of New York.
I don't know. Knowing New York City, they probably do require all that crap.
I don't know about different counties or states. I know about mine, and so you have to research it. But so really quick, because this is super important, you guys have a class that teaches people how to make their own recipes for their dogs. Can you tell me how they get a hold of that? Because I'm very excited about this.
All you, Gwen.
So if you go to www.drdrjudyu.com, it's like short for Dr. Judy University. We're not allowed to say the word university. And so that started as just the website for our, her course. I'm not really going to take credit for it. She's the mastermind behind the whole thing. Homemade Food for Dogs 101. Right now it's you can get a discount if you use the code 2021 launch, 2021 launch. You can get a big discount on it. We, as we kind of mentioned earlier, we realized that there's this huge need for a lot more educational resources for everything from, our pet parents that are really our pet advocates at this point, all the way up to veterinarians. And so we're basically very slowly creating a library of a lot of awesome resources to learn about all sorts of natural pet care topics. It sounds like we're probably going to do some topics on horse health, natural horse health, cats, dogs, Chinese medicine, nutrition, all sorts of stuff. And hopefully we can just keep building it so that way it's a really nice educational platform and resource for not only professionals, but also the average pet owner that just wants to be able to advocate for their pet.
Yeah, that's why you guys are so fabulous. And then you're also admins for a couple of Facebook groups that people could just leave questions there, right? Is there a couple of Facebook groups? I know there's Friends of Dr. Judy Morgan, right? That's a Facebook group.
It's Friends Who Like Dr. Judy Morgan. It's actually not our group. It was started by one of our supporters. So we hop in there whenever we can to answer questions. Honestly, a lot of our supporters are the best moderators in that group because they have been with us for a long time and know a lot of really in-depth knowledge about nutrition and things like that. We also are moderators on Saving Pets One at a Time, that Facebook group, which has some really great content in it. And then we created our own community on our website, which is drjudymorgan.com. And that's for anyone that wants to join, but specifically no social media is required. So for anyone that struggles with social media or just doesn't want to be on social media, we also have that option as well.
Thank you guys so much for just everything you're doing. It really is great because there's such a need for it. And people are struggling, and they're struggling now. You can't even get into even if you wanted to go to a holistic veterinarian, you couldn't get in because they're booked out,
Yep.
months ahead of time. So having these books and access to all of this, and I just can't wait to see it grow, Dr. Morgan, into where you are teaching people how to read their lab work and understanding how to just be advocates for their pets. You guys are both amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're trying.
I will say, Brandon, my husband might get upset at me, but feel free to email us at any time. Either my email, which is gwen@drjudymorgan.com, or info@drjudymorgan.com, which goes to my husband. So I like to plug it when he's asleep already with the baby, so he doesn't know that it's my fault. But yeah, we spend tons and tons of time and energy just trying to work one-on-one with people and just make them feel comfortable and answer questions. I can't tell you how many times we had a phone call of a pet parent like crying on the phone because they just feel so desperate and confused, and they just want someone to genuinely care enough to help them. So we spend tons of time doing that. And if you DM us on any of the social medias, that Judy tries her best, but there's so many. So email is really the way to go.
Well, gosh, she's up at 3 a.m. writing books. I mean,
yeah. But the thing is like those are like her like genius moments where we need to. It's probably because she's having, what is it called, liver stagnation at 3 a.m.
It's my liver cheese stagnation. Yes,
Yeah.
at 1 to 3 in the morning.
And
I come up with all kinds of genius things then, but I'm so scattered that I have a hard time remembering them in the morning. So
a tape recorder next to you. I used to.
I totally need a tape recorder by the bed. Like last night, I wrote 3 chapters of the book in my head, but
Then it's gone in the morning. I used to keep
yes.
a recorder because the same thing happened to me. I just all of a sudden, and then I'm like, that's so brilliant. I'll remember it. It was so brilliant. And then the next morning, I'm like,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But in all seriousness, we really do. I mean, there's only so much of us to go around, but we try to create as many free resources and talk to as many people as possible, just because we know firsthand. Like I get so frustrated and confused, and I know how much of a struggle it is when you're just trying to help your pet and you're not a veterinarian. So, in all seriousness, we hope that we can, above all else, just be helpful for pet parents and for the animals. And
yeah, you are actually. And it is really hard when you have a sick child. You can kind of relate a little bit because you're human also, but then you bring in the animal part of it and people just completely are lost. They don't know what to do. And then you don't have access to veterinarians. That's why it's so important that you guys do what you do. And we're just so blessed to have you just continuing to do this. And I'm just thankful to have you guys on the show. I'm sure our listeners are too. So I'm going to let you guys go. It's very late for you. And
I mean, I'm already in my PJs because 8 p.m. was my bedtime. So I'm like,
oh
I'm
my
probably
gosh.
just going to
I'm still waiting for dinner.
roll right into bed.
But I do have PJ bottoms on.
There you go.
That's good.
That's the amazing thing about videos is I can be in my PJs with a bird in the background, and here we go.
See, I'm always nervous. I'm like, what if because I'm such not a person, I'm always nervous. Like if I did have like my bottom PJs on and I messed up something and that's all they could see the whole time. I think would happen. So I'm all nervous about it. But all right, you guys get some sleep. Thank you so much to all of our listeners. Thank you guys for such wonderful, wonderful questions that you put through. I know Dr. Morgan was able to help you. And Gwen, thank you she just came on last, like I just asked her this morning and she's like, yeah, let's do it. And so I think it's great. It'd be great to have the two of you guys kind of share with us all of your life experiences and stuff. So, and listeners, keep listening. We'll continue to be bringing on some of the really great veterinarians that I reach out to. There's not a lot, but the ones we have are valuable. So we're just, keep you guys going. So you guys get some sleep. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.